But that's not it. That's it. I had a little bit of rock music cued.
Yeah. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I'm Marilyn Bradford, and this is another edition of the Irreverent Therapists, and I'm joined by Pam Houghteling. Otherwise, it couldn't be a plural therapist. It would just be a single, so we have to have somebody else on.
Exactly.
Fortunately, we have Pam. Okay, so today's show is called Food, Glorious Food. Now, I'm old enough to remember Oliver Twist, but you may not be. But that's
I did too.
We all eat, but we do so for different reasons. Some eat simply because their body requires it, but there are many other reasons that people eat. There's comfort eating, reward eating, avoidance eating, culturally influenced eating, closet eating, revenge eating, and many more. Is your style of eating affecting your life? Does it have any power over you? Is there anything you would like to change about your relationship with food? How engaged is your body when you eat? Join us for a discussion of the amazing role food plays in our lives. Here we go.
So I have to ask, revenge eating.
Yeah,
what would that be?
So I was talking with someone. We just actually finished a 4-part teleseries on food, right? Recovery did. And one of the women who had gained a lot of weight in her life, and then she's lost it again, but she was talking about how her mother put her on a diet when she was a baby. And she was constantly, because her legs were chubby. I mean, she was constantly on diets growing up, or everybody else in the family would get a portion this size and she would get a portion that size.
Wow.
So she started eating a lot. That's kind of revenge eating. She was getting back at her mother.
Yeah. You can't control me. I'm going to eat if I want to.
Exactly. And I'm going to eat a whole fried chicken, or a gallon of ice cream, or whatever. And screw you kind of thing. So that's revenge eating.
Well, it's interesting. I was somebody who was thin most of my life. And when I was in my early 30s, I had some kind of reaction to antibiotics, created all kinds of digestive problems. And for, I forgot to hit do not disturb. Let me turn that on now. For 3 years, I was incredibly limited in what I could eat, like boiled chicken, no spices, very bland foods, very limited foods. And when I started being able to eat regularly, I was suddenly someone with a lot of eating issues. Mm-hmm. I would stop, where I lived in New Hampshire, there was a chocolate outlet, a good kind of chocolate had an outlet. I would stop on the way home from work and buy chocolate, and suddenly food was a comfort thing for me. And before that, it had just been like, eat if you feel like it, don't eat if you feel like it. I didn't have any baggage around food, and then I did.
Well, I think we often develop baggage around food when we have an experience like yours or my friend in the telecall series. For me, I grew up in a very non-nurturing, nourishing family where food was restricted. My mother would get a pound of steak. There are 4 of us, cut it into 4 pieces. And if she didn't finish her, she'd put it in the refrigerator with a note that says Mother's. You couldn't eat it. You couldn't have it. Everything was restricted. But it wasn't just that. It was the whole nourishing thing. And food, particularly sugar, became a way I nourished myself and took care of myself. Mm-hmm. And that lasted a long time off and on. I never was really overweight or more than 5 or 6 pounds. And what does overweight mean anyway? That drives me bonkers. Until I actually moved to New Mexico. And I'm not sure what that's about, but I started gaining weight and have gained a fair amount of weight. I just kind of, I don't know if it was just New Mexico, new adventure, or I just kind of said, to hell with it. I'm going to eat all the
Mhm.
chilitos and sopapillas and chips and hot sauce and chili con queso that I want to eat.
Well, growing up, I had a friend whose mother was a bit crazy. It's interesting because both my friend and I went into mental health, and then we were like, now we know what kind of crazy she had. But at the time, like my friend had created the art of being able to go into the fridge or the loaf of bread or whatever and take just a little tiny bit that her mother couldn't notice, because she would notice anything,
Wow.
pretty much. And they weren't allowed to just go eat. Sounds
Right.
kind of like your house. And, or things like how to go look and see what's in a drawer and put everything back exactly the way it was so that nobody can tell. And, so I think for so many of us, there's, whatever kinds of things that go on that then you react to.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Like I reacted to 3 years of massive deprivation with regards to food, by just making it this very important thing, that had a lot of meaning to me, and a lot of, if I'm not getting it, it's deprivation and stuff. And it's interesting to me to see like that difference of, because I had the before and the after.
Yes.
Right. For you, it's how you grew up. And
Yes.
so it kind of created it that way. But I can tell for me, even now, even with the tools I use, there's times where I'm eating and it's an absolute joy.
Yes.
An enjoyment of taste and flavor and company, and it's a meal, and we're relishing, right? Like you and I have done that some, like in Rome, just have this amazing meal. There's times where I'm eating and I absolutely know there's nothing my body requires or even wants, and I'm eating it anyway because it's satisfying some emotional void of some kind.
Yes.
And it's like it can be the exact same action
Yes.
of, because like one of the things I love to do is sit and read a book and eat something like popcorn. Like I find that so fun and satisfying. And but I can do that again from like I think part of it, Marilyn, is when I'm present.
Yes.
With the eating, and when I'm not, because I'm present with it, I know I'm doing it, I'm enjoying it. And there's times where it's more like, okay, let me shut things out by eating in the same thing at the same time.
That's escape eating.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and a couple of things about eating and families and all of that. One is when you're in your mother's womb, you're being fed by her now through the umbilical cord. But you're also picking up all of her attitudes towards food, towards everything. You pick up her, if she's depressed, if she's upset that her body's getting, quote, fat, if she's gorging food, you pick that up energetically. We forget that we're energetic beings. It's not just mind, blah, 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 blah. So that's something to remember. Another thing is we're all encouraged to listen to these so-called experts. You should have this diet, eat the keto diet, eat the Mediterranean diet, don't ever eat sugar. I mean, it's just insane. In fact, we have a friend, I'm always going, okay, so what are you eating and not eating these days? But usually she's following some kind of very specific diet that she's chosen for her health. Does it work? I don't know. I never found that diets actually worked. And part of it is you're the person who knows your body best. Why would you listen to someone else? Now, you might try something out. I've discovered that and now it's the big fad. Everywhere you look, it's eat more protein, eat less pasta. That's just come about in the past month or so. But I've always discovered that if I have a higher protein diet, generally speaking, my body feels better. It does well. I can't eat a breakfast of pancakes and feel good about. I mean, I'm just like,
Well, it's interesting because like 20 years ago, and this was after I'd been having all that digestive trouble. And so I was, interested in reading different kinds of books about food and eating and stuff. And I was doing what you're talking about of like, if I can just find the right way to eat, then I'll be able to eat again. um, and I wish in this moment I could remember the author and the name of the book because it was so pivotal to me. But basically what she talked about, it was the first person I encountered who said, what you're saying, you're the one who knows your body. And it's not that there is a way for you to eat. It's what works for you and your body right now. And
Yes.
she talked about like her husband had been, either vegetarian or vegan for like 12 years, 14 years, and his health was horrible. Mm-hmm. And then he actually started eating meat again, and his body thrived. And so it's not about, well, vegan is not good and eating meat is good. Mm-hmm. It's what worked for him 14 years ago and what works for him now. His body's changing and, his needs are changing and whatever. So that really helped me because I started going more to what works for me now in terms of eating. And, I'm like you, I haven't gone on a diet in a very long time, but when I find what kind of eating is working for me now, weight sheds off me.
Yeah.
And when I go into, now I need to find some way of eating to help this, that, or the other.
Yes.
Then it gets all mixed up again, and I gain weight again.
Yeah, it is very interesting. Well, and I wonder somewhat still if my current gaining weight is more about reaction or revenge, something. It's just like, I don't really care anymore. So quit judging me. Quit judging me. Judging that I'm a different size and all of that. And also really beginning to ask my body, is this working for you, body?
Yeah.
Is this working for you to be gaining weight? And I'm getting it, not really. So I'm beginning to look at this stuff again. And like you said, now, Pam, you have to check in with your body every day, at least, if not every meal. And sometimes it's really weird. So I said, I just finished this telecall and I was telling everybody, and I don't eat much what's called junk food, not because I'm judging it, but I just don't. It just, every once in a while I'll have a potato chip. I'm more prone to going out to Mexican restaurants and having some chips, really good chips and really good salsas. Not the kind you buy in the grocery store in the Northeast. So anyway, we was like,
I don't know what chips are.
So one day I was in the grocery store, a regular grocery store, not like a Whole Foods. And I was like, I really want some Cheez-Its. Buddy, do you really want these Cheez-Its? And that night for dinner, I had Cheez-Its and a glass of red wine. Now, I will probably throw the rest of the box away but it was so satisfying to me. There was something in the wine and the Cheez-Its. I don't know if it was the salt or the sulfates or whatever. But anyway, it was. And if you can be an allowance of your body to do that, then you can be happy with your body, and your body can be happy. I remember Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, was facilitating someone who was on this whole diet. This is bad food. What if there's no bad food or good food? And she was like, well, I can really eat anything. And he said, well, I can eat a hot dog. Can you? She's like, oh, well, no, that wouldn't do that. It's just, that's a bad food. So what if you gave up the whole idea of good foods and bad foods and really got in touch with your body and asked it what it would like to eat?
Well, and you might feel like, oh, well, if I really let myself eat whatever I want to eat, I'll just eat all kinds of, like you'll be out of control or something like that. And what if that's not the case? I mean, so what I find for me is when I'm present with food, and actually I'm going to do a side note and say, Marilyn, years ago, you did a Right Recovery for You intro that was about food. I mean, I know we've done many more since then. Yeah. When I was in, it was an intro about food, and you had just little bits of like 6 or 7 different things, like everything from a raisin and little chips and, just different things to taste. And you had us get really present and put one little bite in our mouths, but just let it sit there and like experience the flavors and experience your body and what it creates to have this in your mouth. And then, slowly start to chew and really being present with every moment of ingesting that food. And it was surprising, like the foods that are something that I might eat very automatically.
Yes. When
I actually was present with it, was kind of gross.
Mostly chips, like potato chips.
Yeah. And then, some other things, it was just like this amazing flavor, but just the one taste was incredibly satisfying.
Yes.
When you're present with it.
Yes.
And so, what I find is step one, because I go through phases where I'm really engaging with all of this. And then I go through phases where I'm like, oh, I've got so much going on. Let me not think about it. Right. But if you actually get really present with, I'm going to eat. One thing I found is a lot of times where I will go to eat something, if I actually ask body, what energy do you require? My body just requires a shift of energy. And then I might or might not eat the food. But I've already like addressed whatever that was going on that's making me head to the fridge. So that would be what I'd suggest to you guys is first just start to get really present. If you're going to put something in your mouth, just take a moment to really experience it. And that doesn't mean you have to do that with every bite. It's just give it a try.
Well, and what you mentioned was sort of akin to automatic eating. And the idea that, I like this food, I don't like that food. And I've noticed how much my tastes have changed. So I'll buy a whole bunch of something and then I won't eat it. It's like, I don't want that stuff. But you used to like it, Marilyn. Well, I don't like it anymore. And that whole, I was going to just piggyback on the thing of being really present, something, because I work a lot with addiction. And I once had a client who said, well, I've been sober for this long, but I'm going for Mexican food. And I always have a margarita. I meet my friends. I don't know what to do. And I said, okay. And what you're talking about, that experience that you had, I call that conscious eating. I said, well, order a margarita and drink. And this is not the whole AA. If you have a drink again, you slip. I mean, she did this on her own. But order a margarita, pick it up, kind of smell it, sit with it, have a very small sip, swirl it around in your mouth, just be present with it. Then have another sip and notice how your body's responding. Is it joyful? Is it kind of, what is it? So she came back the next week. She said, you know what, Marilyn? I discovered I don't even like margaritas. And that's awesome. It. We go on automatic pilot about, I like this and I like that. And I drink this with that and this and that. And none of it's probably true for you now.
Well, and something in what you were talking about made me think of a couple of things. I mean, one is, how much have people heard growing up, like clean your plate?
Yes.
Like you need to, if you're served it, you need to eat it.
Right.
But there's nothing about being present and knowing his, like, I know for me, there's sometimes, like say I go to a restaurant and I might eat 4 bites and I'm done.
Yes.
And then my head's like, but you're paying all this money for this. You can't be done yet.
Yes.
You take leftovers. And it's like this back and forth in my head that has nothing to do with actually what works for my body in that moment, which is I'm done.
Yeah.
So, it's that willingness to buy the food and not have to eat it. Yes. I find sometimes my body just wants some things around.
Yes.
And it never actually ingests any of it. It's just, but it loves opening the fridge and seeing, maybe it's some vegetables I don't usually buy, but they're there and making me happy. And I don't actually get around to cooking and eating them.
Boy, I know that one. And I used to really get on my case about it, but I don't anymore. And when I'm in the grocery store, I ask 2 questions. If I buy you, will you make me money? Which is a great access consciousness thing if you're buying anything. And body, would you like this? Would you like me to get it? And I go by that. And sometimes stuff does sit in the fridge, but I open it up and my body's like, oh, green beans. That's nice.
Yeah. Well, because you started out talking about, it's all energy, and we pick up these things in womb, from the energy of it, and the food's energy. And sometimes you just want to be around something. You don't have to actually ingest it.
Yes.
But Marilyn, we have someone watching who has a question, or not a question, but a comment.
Okay.
So Karen says, my acupuncturist just told me I ate too fast. Then another therapist said we need to chew both sides of the mouth for tongue and jaw health, which is exactly the kind of thing you're talking about, where people give you this. So, they say, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. Or you read it and say to yourself, this is what I need to do.
Right.
And none of that has a question.
Right.
So, whether it's your therapist or your acupuncturist or something you're reading or something you hear, what if you can ask, okay, for me now, is this true for me? Is this light and expansive? I use that all the time. Is this light and expansive and, kind of increasing the energy, my awareness, or does it feel kind of contracted and solid and heavy? One time I was talking with someone who I'd known for a year. I knew she was someone who worked with people nutritionally. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, working with Jen. And it was so light and expansive, and I didn't know what we'd do, but I was like, hey, can I have a session with you? And it started me on a path of doing things with regards to food and my body that really have worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I don't make her the authority in that she knows what's best for me.
Right.
It's okay, taking what she's saying and what am I aware of and what's working for me now.
Yeah. And another question, same kind of thing, is this idea relevant for me in my body?
Yeah.
Yeah. But going on, now this is a little diverging from food, but like when I would go to the doctor, if my body wanted to go to a doctor, I was prone to sinus infections for a while. He would give me like 8 things. Do this, get this, do this. And I'd leave and I'd go, okay, buddy, which of those 8 things works for you? And it would be like 1, 5, and 7 or something, And I wouldn't say anything while at the doctor's office. There's no point confronting somebody who's telling you what you need to do. It doesn't work. They don't get it. But you can just say, oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much. That sounds fine. Thank you. And then go ahead and do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, Karen, I hope that helps and contributes. But yeah, so what if, let's just kind of summarize some of the things we've been talking about. Ask questions, ask your body questions, ask yourself questions, be present with your body. I mean, we've been talking a lot about food. Our title today is Food, Glorious Food, but what if this applies to the type of movement you do for your body and the clothes you wear, the environment, I'm very aware that currently don't have a place set up in my home to work, because I work from home, that really works for my body. There's like, well, if I sit here, then my foot and my back are really happy, but my shoulder and my arms are a little, and then if I sit over here, then my shoulder and arms are better. But so it's like, I'm starting to be aware of my body's asking for something that I haven't had in a long time, which is an actual desk with a nice ergonomic keyboard, the ability to adjust things. And it's been years since I had that, but that seems to be what I'm aware of is required right now.
Yeah.
And that's going to contribute to me. So now I'm starting to look at what would I like that to be?
Yes. No, I bought a desk, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, and I love it. I have to get a new chair now because I had a great chair, but it broke.
Yeah.
Taking care of our bodies and being really present in all the things that our bodies engage in, whether it's eating or clothes or your environment or sitting or sleeping or whatever it is, it all works together. Things aren't segmented and separated the way we sometimes try to do that. So ask questions, make your body your best friend, find things you all enjoy together. That's what I would say.
Yeah. And that seems like a good place to cue the music.
It does. Cue that music, Pam. See you next.